Episode 15 of Hoops Forum, a joint effort of Radius Athletics and a Quick Timeout podcast. I'm Tony Miller. He's Randy Sherman. Randy, how you been?
I'm great, man. We're here on a Thursday this week. We're here on a Thursday.
We're catching everybody off guard today. Day early, some things coming up this weekend that kind of conflicted with scheduling. So we want to make sure that we still did something this week. Before we get into what we're going to be doing, always want to tell you about our sponsors over at 323 Sports. Appreciate them, their support of our show here. You know, we've been talking the last few weeks about camps coming, and you're thinking about camps probably now more and more and more. They have a phenomenal offer, $6.99 for a one-color print moisture management T-shirt. If you're interested in that, we always direct you over to the website, 323sports.com, or you can contact a rep, sales@323sports.com. They'll be sure to do it right for your sports program. This is one of those episodes where it's probably what we're showing is going to be maybe more beneficial. I don't know about more beneficial, but if you're not seeing it, it may not make as much sense. So if by chance you're listening to the replay at some point, you probably want to head over to Radius Athletics on YouTube and watch the full version of it. Those that are watching here, you'll be able to see some things that we'll have up on the screen here in just a few moments. We'll be sure to link those if you want the plays, you want the diagrams, you want the links to the articles. We'll be sure to link those down in the descriptions as well. We're going to break down some of our favorite actions, things that we've either discussed, and some things we've discussed, talked about on this show before. We've got our own segment that we usually do each week called Beyond the Scoreboard, brought to you by our friends over at Sideline Interactive. This entire episode is going to be Beyond the Scoreboard. We're going to even go beyond the play here and kind of dig into, I've said this before too on the show, like it really isn't the plays that we like. It's the actions that are built into the plays that what we end up liking. So sure. You can call that semantics if you want to, but I'm thinking too about coaches, maybe not just diagramming plays, but as you develop your plays, and maybe you're now in the off season looking through your playbook, this is not a chance for you just to add more plays and more things into your playbook. My thought process is take what you have, look through it. Is it stuff that's actually effective? How can we maybe condense it and have better stuff, less amount? Or how can we tweak some things within our offense to make things? And Randy and I will talk through some of those. Randy, let's go ahead and start like right away with some of these, 5 we're going to look through. I'm going to talk through some of the diagrams here, but why don't you go ahead and lead us off? The first one we want to talk about is the old dribble handoff.
Yeah, you put this on the list when we spoke last night about today's show, and I thought let's put a different spin on the DHO, the dribble handoff. That maybe the idea of enhancing the dribble handoff, because I do think sometimes that just straight dribble handoff doesn't always create an advantage. That's a fairly easy action to defend, either through switching or drop and let through or something like that. Like that, in and of itself, the dribble handoff is oftentimes not how we create penetration. It can be done with speed and done where the recipient of the handoff really bursts into the take, into that mesh point. It can create an advantage. But I like to think of ways of how we are going to enhance the DHO. I'm going to make the analogy of a boxer. You've got a boxer. They maybe a right-handed boxer. That's their power punch, the jab or the cross, but they set it up with the jab. So you're probably not going to knock anyone out with your jab, but you set up with the jab and throw the cross. So you throw a combination to knock out your opponent. So in terms of enhancing the DHO, that's kind of what I'm talking about. The handoff is the first action is the jab. The second action is the cross that knocks out the opponent and creates the penetration, to continue the analogy. Here on the screen, we're going handoff, ball screen. So, that's commonly, sometimes you hear that called pistol action. So player 1 hands off to 2. Again, just a simple handoff in and of itself might not create an advantage, but if we throw 2 actions in a row at the defenders, then we've got maybe a better chance to crack that shell like you see in frame 2. And we have that. So frame 1, we go handoff. 5 is is a magnet toward the ball. They're following that handoff. They're chasing behind that handoff. So when the recipient comes out of it, they ball screen immediately. So it's bang, bang, penetrate, and roll. Now we've got a pick and roll option. With one, I don't have that drawn, but one, if X1 tagged the roller, we got a throwback option to player one. So enhancing the DHO by going handoff and adding a ball screen to it.
The second slide here, very similar principle to the one you just described there. Why don't you talk them through this one?
Yeah, this one, again, just instead of, in frame one, instead of 5, just delivering a handoff to player one, we're going to cut out of that single gap. So it's like backcut handoff. What our hope is as if our timing is good, as one cuts out of that single gap and 2 rises out of the corner, X2 kind of gets caught in the traffic. They get caught at that, right where that red arrow meets that black line cutting through, and they kind of have to pause, excuse me, or whatever, like let that, they get caught in the traffic, and now that handoff is delivered to 2 with a clean corner for them to turn and create penetration, continue that cut. Or if this was not 3-on-3 but 5-on-5, we've got a couple players over here holding the sideline, so we penetrate 2, and then 5 after he or she delivers that handoff, just find that deep corner.
Yeah, I like that one. And this one's very similar to the same kind of consecutive actions, but you almost flip what you had there. So it's not the handoff first.
Yeah.
You're going with the pin down first.
Yeah, so we start with a centering pass to a player, the swing pass that I have drawn there in frame one. So now the passer is going to go screen down or have a meet up in the corner with player 2, screen X2. So we're disadvantaging the handoff recipient's defender from the onset here. We're screening them and in hopes that we take them out with the screen or make them kind of hesitate or go under, and then we accelerate into that handoff, so we've got a cleaner corner to turn and crack the shell with that drive that you see in frame 2.
Yeah. Consecutive action, something I've written about. It's on the Fast Model blog. You can go read about those. I love those. I love combining those with multiple actions, what I call multiple actions. So while all of this is happening on the right side of the floor, maybe have like an exchange on the weak side of the floor, something like that, to occupy those help defenders. But you combine those 2 things and you're probably going to have a pretty good play. It doesn't matter what you use within it. Let's go on and talk about the second one. So the first one was dribble handoffs. Let's talk about the second one because this is kind of in the same vein as dribble handoffs.
Okay.
This one, I'll just be honest with you, I've seen it over the years. This was the first year that we used it. I loved it. I think we can use it better. It's not necessarily something that you see in a lot of American, well, NBA. You don't see it. Yeah, you see it a lot overseas. You don't see it outside of professional, and I don't really know. NBA doesn't use it a ton. But that's the throw and go. You want to explain the throw and go?
Yeah. Throw and go is the term that I like for it. I've also called it a take because we're going to take the ball rather than we're going to take the player 1 that you see up there in frame 1 is taking the ball from 5. I've also heard it more recently called a get. I tried to disguise my Texas accent there and say get instead of get. But a get. So basically throw and go to me is a very descriptive term. It sort of rhymes, so it's sticky in that regard. So in frame 1, you see player 1 throw, pass it, throw to player 5, and immediately go into the handoff. They take it back from player 5. Different than a dribble handoff in that the deliverer of the handoff, in this case 5, is not dribbling. They're more stationary and they just kind of hold the ball out on the platter. We call it putting it on a platter. Just hold the ball out there and let the guy sprint and take it, or the girl sprint and take it back. So throw and then go immediately to take it back. And throw and go. And then it just becomes a read. So like as you see there in frame 1, if I cut really hard, one of the main teaching points is outrun your pass. So I want to throw and then immediately sprint to get it back, to take it back, throw and go. Outrun your pass. Cut so hard that you just nearly outrun your pass as it arrives in player 5's hands, and it's immediate. If your defender trails and we give you the handoff, then obviously we're going to crack the shell and get penetration and treat it almost like a middle ball screen and roll right there. If they go under, so we're moving to frame 2 now. If we throw and then go, they go under, but we take the ball and the guy just peekaboo out on the other side is there because he went under. I want the player 5 there to twist and rescreen, and we'll just turn it into middle ball screen. So it's a sort of a read in that regard, that if they trail, we're just going to deliver the handoff and crack the shell into the drive. If they go under and we take it, let's twist, rescreen, and turn it into middle pick and roll. And then like in the final frame in the bottom right corner, I have that called this is an old diagram. I call it a Manu. Ginobili used to do this with Tim Duncan a lot, where Tim Duncan would have the ball at the top of the circle. He got the pass from Manu. Manu would throw and go, but like he would just be trailed tightly, and he almost like curled around it. But as he cornered around Tim Duncan, he was kind of like almost then like a wide receiver running a fade route down the sideline. He's got a little bit of a lead on him, and Tim Duncan would just dump it over the top. So I sometimes call this curl and dump. So if you're trailed, we're going to curl and dump over the top.
Yeah, I like that one. I like these because it gives you almost a counter to pick and roll. So if all your team is doing is pick and roll, you know, teams are icing that. You almost negate any team that ice ball screens, and anybody a lot of times that hedges too the X5 isn't in the place to hedge. So if you're against a team and you haven't practiced a lot of things, just do this. Just throw the ball to the screener, and instead of having the screener screen for the ball, go and get it, like Randy just said. And you can basically run all your same plays that you do with pick and roll stuff, just with a get instead.
I would say too that offense says go. That's why defense is so hard, because offense says go in basketball. So after one makes that pass to that screener sort of there at the top of the key, there's this tendency sometimes for that defender who's like really down and in a stance and getting after it when they're guarding the ball to sort of stand up and relax and burst right into a cut. And maybe I'm faster than them, and I just outrun them to the ball and create that penetration you see in the top left corner there in frame 1.
And you can combine it with our first action, which was the dribble handoff. If that isn't there, so you run that once and the defender knows it's coming, you can just fake the dribble handoff and dribble down to the wing to another guy that's coming. Somebody's relaxing. That's the point. You will find somebody relaxing if you go ahead and just one right after the other.
Yeah, simple read too. Trail, let's give it and score. And under, let's twist it and rescreen, and then if they trail us tightly, we'll curl and dump.
Yeah, we got a couple clips here. This is on Randy's YouTube page.
This kind of old Brooklyn Nets, when the personnel's obviously not the same as it is now, but yeah, you saw Karis LeVert and Jared Allen get into a throw and go there. So LeVert throws and then goes right to take it back.
Going with a shooter instead.
Yeah, Joe Harris here. Yeah, there's a teaching point: outrun your pass. So when he throws it, he's going to try to run so hard that he outruns his pass and gets a good clean shot on the other side of that throw and go.
Yeah, that's good. That full video is on Randy's YouTube page, Radius Athletics. Again, if you search that, you can watch the rest of that clip. We'll be sure to link that as well down below here. All right, next one. So that's the second one. Let's go to the third one here. This one, again, talking ball screens. Instead of going straight into your ball screen, several weeks ago, we talked about some of the things that were going on with March Madness this year and how teams, instead of just calling for a high ball screen and the 5 running out and setting a ball screen, interesting ways to get into a ball screen. So it's not false actions, but it's occupying the defense so that they're not able to just sit there and know exactly what's coming. And this is one that is becoming a little bit more popular. Again, something probably a little bit more European, also probably a little bit more Princeton. Randy can talk about that in a few moments here. But having the 5 go back screen, a lot of times you'll see somebody go screen the 5. So go screen for the 5 and then bring him out. But instead, having the 5 set a back screen for 4 and sending that player through. So most likely X5 will be helping on 4 as they run through the lane, at least taking a step back. And as soon as that happens, 5 is sprinting out to the ball screen, which then kind of the X5 is not in a place to give help, whether you're a hedge team or even if you're a drop team or whatever. And then if you quick roll to the basket, you can usually end up with something at the rim or that shake action, which in frame number 2, that's why we have 3 lifting up from behind there. So that's a simple one too that kind of gives you something before going and ball screening.
And I would say it fits with the theme of what we've talked about today, in that it's consecutive actions. It's bang, bang, back screen, ball screen. Yeah, the back screen would cause X4 to have cause X5 to have to show or hedge. If they don't, let's just lob it to 4 for an alley dunk, right? Like if they don't show or to me, when I see this, I see two things come to mind. First is the principle of arriving alone at the ball screen. That's the motive behind setting the back screen first. Is we want 5 to arrive alone at the ball screen, so they set the back screen for 4, causing their man to hedge or show, so we don't throw an alley-oop lob on them. And now I sprint out of that back screen directly into the ball screen, and we've got a clean corner to turn because, like you mentioned, X5 is disadvantaged having had to show on the back screen. Second thing that comes to mind, this is a common combination of back screen, ball screen in chin in Princeton. So you might see a team signal chin. Sometimes they already have that post up at the elbow, like you have them cutting from the block to the elbow, but they'll already be up at the elbow. So, they'll signal chin by tapping their chin, back screen, and then immediately sprint to the ball screen. Some coaches that run Princeton is the specials. Like I hear sometimes it's called chin thumb. So the point guard would, chin, thumb, and that means he wants back screen, ball screen. Again, combination of actions. Defense has to defend 2 things in a row and arrive alone at that ball screen by causing that show to take away the alley-oop lob.
All right, number 4. Next one is one that we have spent a lot of time talking about, but these last 2 here, both kind of cuts to open up more space for you. Some of you've heard us talk about this, but you're still not quite sure what we're referring to here. I've heard this called about 3 or 30 different things, so we'll call it a 45 cut. You may have heard of it called like almost like a fingers cut, a slice cut. I've heard it cut before.
Blur
screen. Same principle here. Very interesting. Those ghost screens this year are this, but to a different spot on the floor almost. They're kind of serving as blur screens this year, but we'll save those for later. This is the 45 cut. Randy, why don't you go ahead and kind of explain this, and then I'll show them. I'll go ahead and move on to the second screen so you can talk about that in a little bit more detail.
Leave it here real quick, if you don't mind, just for a second. So we get these 2 spots are filled. We got a 2-guard front. Maybe we got guys in the deep corner and a guy in the dunker spot or something like that. That's not drawn on here. But what we're talking about is a cut we make when we throw it from guard to guard in a 2-guard front, slot to slot, whatever your terminology is for that. So in this instance, really, I just want it to be a cut. Just cut to the corner. As soon as you pass, just a straight line segment between you and to that corner. Should come out sort of looking like 45 degrees. And like I said, now you can advance the frame to the next slide that we have, and it would be, now there is the 4 outlook, and we've got basically I would think of this as a gap creating cut. Like in some offenses, you see a team make this top to top, this guard to guard pass, and maybe exchange with the player below them, or screen down, or something like that, or that keeps the floor in balance, right? We've got 2 by 2 on either side, but it doesn't open the space that this cut by one vacating that side of the court. We sort of tilt the floor, we compress the space in that small blue square in frame 1. 5, 3, and 1 now are compressed. That creates a large amount of space in frame 2 to the right hand for players to drive. So it's just a gap creating cut. Instead of exchanging with the player below you or down screening and keeping the symmetry in the possession, you tilt the floor to that side, you compress the players to one side, and then attack the space that created back to the other.
Yeah, that one is one, like we said, that we've talked about the last few weeks, and so you can hear how that fits into a bigger half-court philosophy on those previous episodes. We won't rehash all that. Maybe you'll go back and listen to some of the older episodes that we had.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on. This last one. Last one is, we call it a burn cut.
Okay.
If you look at this one may not look very impressive. This is something that probably a lot of teams have done for years. I don't necessarily, it's almost intuition for older, more experienced players. But if you can help younger players recognize when this happens, and there's two things that you can do to get to that. The burn cut is just simply recognizing when your defender is looking at the basketball and cutting towards the basket. It's not random cuts on the floor. I think that can be taken, the pendulum swings to the far extreme where you have players that are just cutting all over the place.
Yeah.
But instead of, well, I just cut backdoor while my guy's not looking, actually designing into your offense actions that can lead to that happening. And the two that we have drawn up, I'll show this one. I'll let Randy explain the next one. But anytime you dribble directly at or directly towards a defender, we don't have X3 on the screen. But as one is dribbling, he is dribbling off of the ball screen right at X3. Mm-hmm. Most teams will stay away from this because they don't want two on the side that they're dribbling towards. But if you've designed this for this purpose, dribble as hard as you can at X3, 3 cuts through, and then a lot of times you can get that because everybody else is lifted. And so what you end up with is a open look at the front of the rim there. So that's kind of, the ball is from the outside going in. Mm-hmm. And the second one that we have here is one that we've been talking about, but a little bit different.
Yeah, and the second one here on the post feed, it's just hard for defenders to resist the urge when we penetrate with the pass or the dribble. In this case, we're penetrating with the pass with the post feed, to not turn their head and look in there. Mm-hmm. You know, they turn their head and look in there. And if you know, simple rule for 3 here or would be, if you can see the back of your defender's head, cut behind it. So if, you know, just something that the ball is a magnet, we throw it in there to one who's posted up, and X3 just going to turn and look, and they're blind for a second, or they're really staring in there. Maybe they intend to, you know, they turn their head and they intend to go double or something like that. So if you can cut behind their head while their head is turned to you, you might find yourself a layup on the end of that cut.
Yeah, I've seen one actually dribble into the post, so they may start on the perimeter. You have to throw it in there.
Yeah.
But I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. The more, I think, higher levels, we're paying attention to it more. But how much of our offense originates from the paint? Old school, you throw it into a dominant post player and they score. The points per possession are now showing that that's not very high. But I can, now swinging to this side of it, I can get it into the post, or I can get it into the paint through my guards, which goes counterintuitive to a lot of players. How can you get creative in getting the ball in there? Do you just need because most players will say, well, my point guard can't go post up. They don't know how to do that. Well, teach them how to do that. But if they don't, how can you get them into the post so they can at least catch the ball? Can you screen for them into the post? Can they dribble into the post? Do you have somebody that we had the luxury a couple of years ago of having a 6'5" point guard that we could just go post up? And like you said, it's too much for defenses to resist, and somebody will turn their head, and then you can beat them with the burn cut, somebody on the floor there. So
yeah. So another thing that that might be possible, like say 4 enters to 1 right here and cuts, like makes a Laker cut, and 5, 3, and 2 start filling around the arc to replace that spot. And as they're moving, their defender is watching that post player. So I'm filling around the arc to follow the man in front of me. They'll tell me what to do. I'm filling around the arc, and I see my player head turn, and I stick my foot in the ground and cut and burn cut behind their head.
Yeah. All right. So 5 actions. Hopefully those are some things that you may already have a lot of those in your playbook, or it may be something where you're looking to add something into it, or another level or another layer into it. Small tweaks. That would be I'll give my suggestion, then Randy can finish us off with his suggestion. My suggestion is small tweaks, being smarter about how you design things, not necessarily just adding more things.
And I would add that all this is great, but really it's just a means to create penetration. So I think we, as coaches, we coached that part of the game a little maybe too intricately, but let's do something quick, whether it's a cut, a handoff ball screen, or something to crack that penetration. And that's the part of the game where we make our money. We penetrate, we either score at the rim, we draw help, we kick, we play one more. Like, it's all just the ploy to get the paint touch and to get the crack, or to crack the shell.
Yeah. Good. We're planning on doing things like this probably once a month or once every 6 weeks or so, where we just give you 4 or 5, get in, get out. Hopefully it can be something that you can maybe add 1 or 2 things just to help you a little bit, some tips, some suggestions. So be on the lookout for those. We do appreciate all of you who joined us this week. If you missed any part of the show, go back and watch it all on Radius Athletics. Search that on YouTube, and you will find each of the episodes in their entirety there on the site. You can also listen to an abbreviated version of it, a quick timeout podcast. Those usually release a week after we record them live, so you can search a quick timeout on any platform and find them there. For Randy Sherman, I'm Tony Miller. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.